legendary guy. And, my book was all about vintage bass guitars. Trying to get Bill to talk about bass guitars is not easy. It's the last fucking thing he wants to talk about. And you're talking about a guy who has written 9 books of his own, maybe 10 by now. He's a butterfly photographer. He invented his own metal detector for people with small hands. Small hands. What? Yeah. And he and his daughter discovered relics on his own property that are now in the British Museum. So it just got me thinking, people have this preconception about what bass players are. Usually the guy is standing in the shadows, by the drummer and holds his bass up like Bill did so he could check out the chicks. And, some of us are pretty darn interesting. So during the pandemic, when I was writing the memoir, Sam Dunn from Banger Films, who did our first documentary, he wrote to me and he said, look, I love your book, I'm a bass player. Is there a documentary we could do about this book? I said, well, I don't know, let's talk about it. So we tossed some ideas around with Daniel Richler, my co-writer, and my brother Alan Wyman, who's a producer. We came up on this idea based on those interviews, trying to go out and prove to the world that bass players are human. Anyway, so then I had to make the damn thing, and that was really interesting because I had to be a host, and that's really not my thing. But, of course I picked wonderful bass players that a few I knew, a couple I didn't really know, and we had such a great time. So I hope everybody does get to a few laughs.
And when will it start?
December 5th.
Okay, fair enough.
Okay, cool. And in your little program we gave you, there's a QR code so you can get it for free.
Nice!
Everybody wants a free thing.
I love it. So we have some questions from some of you who are here and some of you who have submitted these. The first, Geddy, I might need a little assistance with. This is from Fernie, British Columbia. I assume that's a town in British Columbia?
Oh yes, that's the great Alexander Zivovich. You have a picture of it? Yes. What does Alexander Zivovich ask?
What does he ask? How do you say his name? Zivovich. All right, everyone repeat that. Never mind. So he asks you, can you describe the meaning of the word shreve and the origin of the word Shraddis?
Okay, so you know who wrote that question. That guy. He sent it in. So a shreve is... Let's talk about the word Shravis first. There's this word in the Rush lexicon, like we had our own language, and there are many words in the Rush lexicon. Shravis is a word that means when the situation is really kind of indistinct, unsure, unclear, messed up, like, if you're going to expect a gate to be set up in time and you get in and the gears everywhere, nothing's set up, that's a Shravis situation. And so when we first decided we needed an assistant on tour with us, we didn't know what to call him. So we called him a shreve. Because his job description was kind of Shravis. Anyway, thank you, Alexander Zivovich.
Thank you, Alex.
Now let's get to
Alex. Oh, by the way, I was reading in the book, and as it goes on, there are the names Pratt and Lurks. And those came about, they represent the other two members of your band, but how did those names come about?
Oh God,
because towards the end of the book, you only refer to them as Pratt and what's it?
Yeah, Pratt and Lurks, and I was Dirk, and that actually became Peak, Leak, and Peak in our last few years. We had 1,000 nicknames for each other. It was always a thing, and Lurks was, his name was mangled by our first tour manager, Howard Howard Underlighter. You may have seen him at the lighting board. He has this God complex. Let there be light. Anyway, he had this hilarious way of talking, and he'd take any word and just add some noises to the end of it. So Alex became Alex, became Alex, became Lurks. And I can't remember the origin of Pratt. He probably was acting like a Pratt, so we called him that.
All right. Let us take a question from Alex DeAngelis. Says,
Wait, where are you, Alex? Are you here?
You're here.
Hey.
Stand up.
Hi, Alex.
Hey, Alex. He writes, I've been a fan ever since I was born, thanks to my dad. My first show was July 17, 2004 at the MGM in Las Vegas on the R30 tour. 26 shows later, my last show was July 25th, 2015 at MGM on my birthday. I asked you, was ending the Clockwork Angels tour with the Garden, with that song, was that intentional, or was that just the way it worked out? And did you know that Clockwork Angels would be the last album? So first, did you intend to end it with the Garden?
Thank you. Originally, no. That tour was very carefully orchestrated because we were trying to tell. He's talking about the Clockwork Angels,
Yeah.
R40, or
well, I think he's talking about R40, R30.
He's talking about R30.
Well, he was at R30. I think he's talking about.
Oh, he's talking about the album.
Yeah.
Yes. It was.
Oh, I get it. I get it.
Now I get it. Yeah, we always intended on ending with the Garden because in the story that Neil writes about this character who goes on this incredible life journey, this is the end of his life, and he's looking back and thinking about the good and the bad, and he's really philosophizing. And for me, personally, I think it's one of the most brilliant lyrics that Neil ever wrote. Wisdom, and I think hard-fought wisdom. The man had a very difficult life, especially in the last 20 years of his life. So he learned a lot of things, and he shared his wisdom with us, in particular in that song. So thank you.
And did you know that Clockwork Angels would be the last album? Did you think that when you completed it? Because
No.
you did it differently. You took more time. You wanted to each be able to get back to your families. You didn't, overdo yourself in the process.
Well, that whole period, was all about Neil and his second family.
Right.
He had found someone to love again, and he had a child. And so we tried to accommodate him as much as we could, because he needed to be with his new family. He didn't want to miss anything of Olivia's growing up. So that's why we recorded it in Los Angeles. We did a lot of the record in Los Angeles. And so at the time, of course, we did not think it would be the last record. And I wish we had done more, but that's not the way fate worked things out. So thank you very much for your question.
We have a letter from Tony, or a note from Tony DeRose, and Tony is in Lansdale.
Where are we?
Are you here? Geddy wants to see everybody.
I want
He's
to see
asking
him.
a question.
You up there? Where
Up there.
There he is. Hey, Tony.
Tony's question is, my wife asked me what I wanted for my birthday this year. My birthday is October 23rd, and my response was to come to your book tour. Wow, I love the big, beautiful book of bass, and I love the lyrics. The professor's lyrics are timeless. How did you come up with the bass lines that complement the lyrics? For instance, on Free Will, how easy was it to come up with that famous bass line?
Well, thank you. I have some advice for you. You have to ask for more expensive gifts. Seriously, the most fun for me is playing bass. More than any other aspect of my job with Rush or outside of Rush, I love to play bass. So writing bass parts it's just the best job. It's just so much fun, so interesting. And sometimes I write the bass part and then I write the vocal melody around the bass part. Sometimes it has nothing to do with the bass part. And sometimes during the recording session, after I hear Neil put down his rhythm section, I start changing it to accommodate some of his movements, and that's really a great back and forth. Neil and I used to talk about improvising in the studio, and once we kind of got our on the same wavelength, it was great fun to lay down those tracks. And sometimes, like a song like The Anarchist, for example, I put the bass tracks down, and then I went in and sang all the vocals, and then I went to play the two live, like in rehearsal, and it was like, fuck, man, I can't do this. The vocal has a completely different rhythmic pattern to what the bass is doing. So, what do you do? So I sat in my little studio at home and I played that bass part over and over and over and over and over again until I didn't have to think about it anymore. And then I could try to sing it, and like a drummer, kind of split my mind into two. And thankfully it worked out. A song like Free Will, of course, a lot of that song was driven by the bass part. I mean, it really is an integral part of that tune. So it was relatively easy to sing and play at the